economic data coming out. Initial jobless claims, shocker, shocker, still good. Initial jobless claims are 229,000, a little higher than estimates on the margin, a little higher sequentially. But again, that firmer job market continuing to play out in the data as you wind up having the Fed lowering their unemployment rate forecast for the end of next year to 3.6%. But despite the fact that NAIRU is still at 4.5%, something there doesn't quite make sense. All right, joining us now is Constance Hunter, KPMG chief economist, and Nick Bennenbroek of Wells Fargo Securities still with us. Do you expect an overshoot of inflation as unemployment continues to grind lower?
Well, that is the question. I will tell you what Fed Chairman Powell expects, which is that the Phillips curve is flatter. And this is the call to make in 2018 going into 2019. What we've seen in the data is all of the survey data indicates that companies are having difficulty finding workers, and that would normally indicate that wages are going to go up. But we've yet to see material wage increases, and one of the things we saw from last month's job report was that at that 313,000 workers added, there are clearly still people on the sidelines coming into the labor market. We saw participation rise in that core worker category. So that is the question for 2018 and 2019.
So, Nick, when you take a look at, say, the dollar and what we're seeing impact in the market, are we to imply that there is more slack in the labor market than we would have thought? Is that why the dollar didn't have a stronger reaction yesterday?
Well, I think the key to the dollar's reaction was the dots and the signals from the Federal Reserve. And I think the debate yesterday for 2018, where they're going to signal 3 rate hikes, where they're going to signal 4. The market was probably at 3.5. They stayed at 3, and so, basically the dollar came off. And then when they started to signal sort of more moves in 2019 and 2020, that's when you expect the ECB, Bank of England, all these other central banks to be moving as well. So I think that's why the dollar was down, because we didn't get any more guidance on near-term moves.
But, Nick, how can we not have inflation ramp in when you have unemployment? They think it's going to go down to in the mid-3s now, but they say the long-term number is actually in the 4s. Those two things don't add up. You've got to start paying people more money.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the point that was made earlier, the Phillips curve probably is a bit flatter, and we've seen this dynamic everywhere. I mean, the European Central Bank is struggling to generate inflation. The US is struggling to generate inflation. Even down in places like Australia and New Zealand, they're not getting much inflation. I think if we do get an overshoot, it's going to be very modest.